To difference makers.
Yes, we are. We recognize difference makers. We have difference makers across the district in different capacities. And tonight, I believe, want to recognize our nomination here. I believe for Ms. Martin, and I believe Shelby Scarborough. Dr. Scarborough, if you would introduce her here, would be great. And we appreciate everything she does for us and our community. In another role from everything she did tremendously for us in her prior role as one of our principals.
So as Boys and Girls Club was preparing for this summer, trying to come up with programming that would be exciting and as safe as possible, Barb reached out and said, we need some of your teachers. And so they were working together, put their plans together, and we had quite a few of our teachers that applied. And so Barb felt it was necessary to recognize, because they went above and beyond to provide excellent programming and opportunities for our students this summer at Boys and Girls Club. So I would like to introduce Ms. Barb Martin.
Thanks for letting me come today. It would be great if they could all be here, but I get it. So I would like to recognize several teachers. I'm Barb Martin. I'm the Education Director at the Boys and Girls Club, and I'm representing David Hendrickson, who is also a former Jeff City employee, and the Boys and Girls Club. We would like to nominate and recognize Ashley White from Pioneer Trail, Jessica Yates from Morrow Heights, Karina Sherfield from West, Lisa Eichen from West, Brittany Pringer from Pioneer Trail, Ashley McCullum from Pioneer Trail, Callie Spurgeon from Pioneer Trail, Amanda Schreiber from Lawson, Sarah Wagonette from Bel Air, Leah Skinner from East, Christina Massman from Bel Air, Nicole Ryan from Bel Air, and Rachel Midoff from Callaway Hills. 2020, the year the world turned upside down and the world realized that teachers were rock stars. On May 1st, the Boys and Girls Club determined that we would open on June 1st with the guidance of a team of professionals, including Frank Underwood from Jefferson City School District and the Cole County Health Department, who helped us write a reentry plan. We knew that there would be many members at the Boys and Girls Club who didn't have the same level of support remotely as others for success in an online learning format. When in-seat summer school wasn't going to be an option, we wanted to try to provide some in-seat learning opportunities at the Boys and Girls Club. 10 teachers and 3 substitutes were hired with the following directions. 1, relationships. Likely social and emotional support and building of trust was going to be needed. What did March, April, and May look like for some of these young people? Relationships are key to rigor and relevance. Build relationships first, provide them with encouragement and opportunities to succeed, and students will jump through hoops for you. Learning. Think about standards that either may have been missed in the 4th quarter or priority standards that were taught in the first 3 quarters that might need revisiting, as they would really help to carry students into the next school year. Fun. Kids needed active and engaging learning opportunities this summer. No pressure, right? What happened at the Boys and Girls Club between June 1st and July 10th was powerful thanks to these professionals. Teachers started the day with kids, welcoming them and building relationships as they arrived, ate breakfast, and settled into what the day would look like. By 8 a.m., kids were highly engaged in learning opportunities planned by classroom teachers. Teachers covered things like story elements, some Missouri history, and math, lots of math. At least one soon-to-be 4th grader out there mastered long division and proudly showed off his work to the camera with a smile. At 9:30, our youth development professionals, predominantly college-age kids, came in to work side by side with the teachers. Teachers implemented Positive Action, a program we use at the Boys and Girls Club, which is a part of the state opioid response grant, which has as its core, if kids feel good about themselves and they think positive thoughts and do positive things, then when things get tough in life, they might choose other things besides self-medicating to cope. Teachers modeled for the youth development professionals the implementation of Positive Action program, and the YDPs continued to teach it after the teachers' time at the club was over. Teachers also implemented with the YDP a Boys and Girls Club program called Summer Brain Game. This is a 6-unit, 6-week program which included 2 different weeks focused on different literature along with World Cultures unit and a science unit. At 11 o'clock, the transition from classroom teacher to YDP was complete. Mrs. Middaw came into the club every afternoon to bring music to our members. What joy we saw in the members' faces in making music together. Full-time staff at the club commented on the positive relationships that teachers had with kids and the smiles on kids and teachers' faces. On the last day the teachers were at the club, there were student tears and a rumor of one teacher with a pen pal for this coming school year. I hope that happens. The weekend after the teachers' work was finished, David Hendrickson, who coordinates the Positive Action programming, and I went in to gather materials that the teachers had used and took pictures of the evidence left behind of the powerful learning that took place. As a former educator in this district, this group of teachers is impressive. Positive relationships quickly led to trust and engaging learning experiences for a number of lucky students who will be more confident 1st through 6th graders this coming year. Thank you for exceeding our expectations and for truly being difference makers. Thank you.
Barb, thank you for everything you've done, and we recognize that the impact is making a difference while you were here, and now obviously you're making a role here now, so thank you for that great overview and appreciate what you do.
Thank you.
Yeah, really, good stuff.
Difference
I believe that
makers.
is.
Okay. Need to approval of the consent agenda items. First,
Move to approve the consent agenda items.
Second,
any discussion?
I do have one question. I just want to clarify. I had a question of Jason, and he got back to me about the surplus, but I just want to confirm that. So going forward, we will have, all of our equipment as of the summer is going to be tagged, and so going forward on any surplus, we'll have specific line items with an inventory tag that identifies the item specifically, correct?
Yes, Frank's office has taken on inventory, and it's been something that's been a struggle for a long time, and they've done a really good job. They've got us up to where we need to be, so I feel much better about our inventory process.
Okay, great. That's all.
Okay. Any more discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, and we'll move on to reports and communications. Dr. Lithicum with your superintendent update.
Yes, Jeff City High School's class of 2020, we celebrated a week ago Saturday, and the rain held off, and we had just a tremendous day, and it was great to recognize our seniors. And the most common reference of the day, I believe, was resilience. It was a common theme of our senior class from everything they've gone through with their time at JC. So it was exciting to see. We were glad we were able to do it. It was a little bit later than we would have liked, but we want to ensure the safety of our students and our patrons and our parents to take part in that celebration. We had a new teacher orientation this morning. Welcome teachers at Capital City High School this morning. I think Shelby's going to touch on that in a little bit. Wanted to give you an update, a community town hall project update with the News Tribune, Lincoln University, KRCG, basically a framework to look at our community and how we can identify issues in our community through a roundtable. And so they asked if I would participate in that, and so we've had a couple meetings, going to have another, and I believe at this time it's going to be done virtually, but give our community an opportunity to discuss issues in our community moving forward, so we're excited about that. We had, since our last month, we talked about equity in our schools and inclusion. There was a group of us that attended the Inclusivity Conference in Columbia last Thursday. It was done virtually. And I think it just reaffirms some things that we're doing. Number one, that we would like our staff to better reflect our student population. So we're making progress there. There was a lot of different speakers and great speakers, and from an educational standpoint, and having a better understanding, I think, is a big part that we all recognize that we can improve, including myself. Since last month, I've had 12 individual meetings regarding equity and inclusion and opportunities for all in our schools, and 2 small group meetings, and we're in the planning stages of additional small group meetings that we are coordinating with our staff to have a better understanding moving forward. We have been meeting every 2 weeks with the Cole County schools and the Cole County Health Department regarding our reentry plans. We are going to get into a little more in depth here as an agenda item regarding our 2021 school year opening, so I won't steal the thunder from that. We do have, starting next week, a social media campaign regarding our reentry plans. with regards to expectations of social distancing, wearing masks. We'll discuss that later here tonight, but our communications department are going to touch on that, release that to our staff and our families. And this Friday, we are actually having a back-to-school Q&A. And we sent out to our staff today, and we're excited about that with our staff at 11 o'clock for our staff and at noon for our parents. And they can submit questions, and we'll address those. As it is a work in progress, we recognize, and we do have an opportunity as well, and so we're excited about that. So there'll be more information on that, but just going to give our staff an opportunity to better understand the reentry plans that we're going to dive into a little bit here tonight as a later agenda item. I believe that is all I have in my report at this time.
Okay.
Any questions on that or anything?
Okay. We will move on to Chief of Learning update, Dr. Scarborough.
Good evening. We spent most of the day at Capital City High School welcoming our new staff, and it was kind of sad to look in the eyes of brand new teachers who've never started their teaching career, trying to set up their classroom, trying to figure out what it's going to look like. But we have some amazing new people joining our team here, and we're very excited about that. We have about 90 new teachers, so last year it was about 120. With opening at Capital City, obviously that was an inflated number last year, but we are pleased that we're working on a retention rate, so we are very happy about that. So some of the things that we took them through today, Brenda Hatfield and I did some activities just to help them be mindful of how to deal with families, knowing that they're leaving their most precious children at our doors and not able to walk through and see the schools because we're minimizing the number of extra visitors in our building. So taking them through that level of empathy and helping them understand that sometimes people may not behave the best when they're scared, and we need to do our jobs to help them. And so with that, we also wanted to ease their minds, because we know that some of them are scared, and felt that we needed to do our part to ease their mind, that we are here to help them and support them and help them navigate their career as they join our team. Some of the things that are happening, Gary and Lori had their administrators retreats, and so over that course of a day, they spent time working on team building activities, focusing on reentry plans, what the year is going to look like, and it was very good for the administrators to come together and realize that we have to be stronger together, as Larry always says. And so trying to charter these waters are going to have challenges, but when you have that level of trust and you're confident in the people that you work alongside, it makes it much, much better. Kindergarten screenings were held, and so kudos to all of the buildings that put together some alternative plans to make sure we can get our youngest learners ready for school. And so all of the measures and time and energy and effort that they put into making that happen, kudos to all of them. One of them, Emily Roberts, happens to be joining us, and Shelley Thompson has to be joining us. So they are from Bel Air and from South. So we are very grateful and thankful to the work that they're doing. We are also working on rolling out devices, so lots of things. We're going to allow middle schoolers to take their devices home, so kudos to the technology department ordering a bunch of devices, trying to get all of that worked out and work through the logistics. So it's taking a lot of people to put some different things that we haven't done before in place, but it's people coming together willing to do that. So we are also hosting virtual open houses this year, so it's again another change, but again, the buildings are coming together to find creative ways to ease the minds of parents and to help students get excited about the school year. So we look forward to looking through different virtual lenses of our schools as people get ready for the school year. But people are stepping up, and I'm proud of all the things that are happening, and knowing that people have our kiddos and our staff's best interest at heart, and that's what we're putting in place to make sure we have an amazing start to the school year, despite all the challenges that are facing us. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to, Shelby, I want to thank you for the formatting on the report from all the different administrators being, kind of consistent. That was helpful in terms of being able to read through that. So
Thank you. I appreciate
It's
that.
got some.
Maybe this is for later, but as far as parents that have signed up for virtual learning, do we have numbers on that yet?
Yes. Yeah, we're going to talk about our reentry plans, and we have all that information.
Thanks, Shelby.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have COO update, Mr. Hoffman.
Hi, good evening. We've mentioned summertime obviously is a big time of facility improvement, and we have projects going on at every single building in the district. I don't know how many of you have been around to see a lot of the work that's going on, but there's some really cool stuff going on. The facilities look great. A lot of the projects are coming down right to the wire, and the only one that we're really concerned about impacting is Lewis and Clark. We redid the gym, and the gym floor, everything is going to be in, but the bleachers, and we talked about that before. They were manufactured in Michigan, and Michigan shut down all manufacturing early on during the COVID recess, and so they are on order, and we just don't know exactly when they're going to be in. So there will be a little disruption there. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have about any of the projects that we have going on, but a lot of good stuff over at JC and Thorpe, the wrestling building, parking at Thorpe and the wrestling building, a lot of really cool projects.
We're not worried about Union Street being complete at the high school?
Well, I saw it again today. It still looks like
That's why I asked. It looked like there's a lot to be done, but I don't know how fast that goes. So.
Any concerns, Frank, of Union Street?
No, okay. Okay.
Good answer, Frank.
Hesitation, yeah. Wasn't quite quick enough.
Okay,
Yeah.
no, it looks great, and I mean, the JC, and the landscape and everything looks good.
Yeah, we have a lot of concrete work still going on, so we need some dry days, but.
Yeah, okay. Good deal.
We talked a lot about the mission nutrition that we had going on where we were delivering meals, and our final number, we served 168,301 meals from the time we closed through the end of July. It was a great team effort, and Dana and her team making that happen. Brandon at the bus barn and First Student helping with delivery. Bridget's department, special services, we had a bunch of paras that helped ride the bus and deliver meals. Ryan's department with the communication couldn't have been done without everybody working together. And it's amazing how often we're so lucky to get random inspections from state departments, but we were that lucky again. And on July 13th, the Department of Health and Senior Services came and inspected our records, and we got a 100% clean slate, and that's always a little bit nerve-wracking, but Dana and her team had their stuff together and got a certificate of appreciation from the Department of Health and Senior Services.
Good job.
Great.
Auditors started our audit today. They're doing it virtually. We can exchange documents back and forth, and so that process has started. So a lot going on. Any questions?
Thank you.
Yeah, good.
Thank you, Jason.
We'll move on to old business. How about 2020 and 2021 school year opening, Dr. Lincoln?
Absolutely. We are excited about school, and we recognize it's times that we've never been in, and uncharted waters. I've said that a few times, but we are relying on those around us, and that we do believe we're stronger together. And if there's ever a time of needing to be stronger together, it is now. That is not only as a staff, but those around that, from the county health departments to CDC, Missouri Department of Health, the governor recommendations, MSBA gives considerations, other school districts or other county schools. And at the end of the day, we want a safe environment for our students, for our staff, but we also have a responsibility to the whole child and what that looks like. And it's a fine line, and most folks have an opinion about that. You know, if every time it snows you have a snow day, you might be going to school year round. And there are some folks that have an opinion that you probably should. When I came from Northwest Missouri and had my opinion about snow days, I had to shift that a little bit here, I'll be honest, of what that looks like. But, you know, if somebody slides off because it's a little slick, well, you shouldn't have had school. Well, there's folks can exceed the speed limit and put themselves at risk many times. So it's a fine line, and at the end of the day, we do believe we are stronger together, and we want to ensure we have a responsibility for our parents. We've had parents that have shared concerns about their child and without any instruction over 5 months, and experiencing the educational system and experiencing as a child what that means with with their classmates. And I say that we need to ensure the safety through CDC, through the Cole County Health Department and Callaway County Health Departments, take all those into consideration, but we still have a responsibility for our children and to ensure they're successful, because I don't want to look back 5-10 years from now and then a lot of kids that aren't successful, it's like, well, there's an asterisk because we had COVID. We still have a responsibility, and we believe the best environment is face-to-face. I prefer a face-to-face board meeting versus having a virtual board meeting. We can have a virtual board meeting, and we have, and we may need to again. But I also, that responsibility of there's something about looking folks in the eye, including a teacher and a student. With that being said, we need to ensure that it's a safe environment. So it's a balance, and it's a fine line. We may make some mistakes, but we're going to own them, and we're going to move forward working stronger together through this. So we have as we look at what that responsibility is of working with parents and communicating, we're super excited about the back to school Q&A that we have scheduled for this Friday, and with our staff members, and they can ask any question in the world and we'll answer those, or if we don't know the answer, we'll get back to them. And when we rolled out our plan on the 15th of July, that was based upon what we felt on recommendations. Brenda Hatfield had facilitated a back to school survey and what that looks like, because there are spectrums of opinions of you should never go back to school and to be done all virtually, and some saying that it's a big hoax and that you should be face to face every day, and masks are evil, because there's a wide range of opinions about that. We want to educate children, and we're going to take recommendations from the Cole County Health Department and the CDC, because that's what they do for a living. And so I think that's our responsibility. I want our board to feel that we're taking those very seriously, but we also have that responsibility for the well-being of our children and their future. And that future needs to be in school, in my opinion. And when we can't, we'll do the best we can to make that the best experience possible that we can moving forward. I think a big part of this, when we talk a team effort, is just being aligned, and as we communicate these plans. Okay, Jason will, here shortly, not yet, will bring this up. You can see our reentry plans that we sent out on the 15th of July. They've been on our website, and we're going to look through these here, but carrying out these plans with fidelity is tremendously important, and we have to be aligned, and there's going to be questions, and we're going to ask folks for some grace to help us, also hold us accountable, but as we work through these, because there are some that change daily, literally change daily as we work through these. So we need to be proactive. Ryan's department, not just her department, communication isn't just our communications department's responsibility, it's all of us in this room. And we all have a piece of being a part of the solution, including our media, working together, not the scare tactics of, oh my, what are we going to do? We have to work through these, educate folks, but then take them seriously as well as we move forward for the safety of our children, while also the well-being of our children and their future, that I think we have responsibility. So there's 7 parts of our plan. So Jason, would you bring up, if you go to our district website, so this is our main website, jcschools.us, you go to home, and down here on the left, this has been on our website, the back to school reentry plans. Okay, so we're going to bring these up. There's 7 parts of these, of this plan that we shared on July 15th. Okay, and again, these could change in the next 2 weeks. We start school 2 weeks from today, and they could change the landscaping of, or the landscape of education and what we know and cases. We recognize those. I'm in constant contact with the Cole County Health Department. I talk to them today, not every single day, but we talk on a regular basis. We rely on them, and we have to work stronger together with them, while we also need to ensure that we have a learning environment for our children, whether face-to-face or whether virtually, remotely, of what that looks like. So here's our plan. I had a letter on here, but we'll go into the first part of this, which is the sanitation. So we want to ensure that the things are clean. And so Frank, if you would come just kind of give a quick overview of the increased sanitation efforts, the disinfectant sanitation training is, and we'll go through each 7 of these. We're not going to get deep in the weeds. If you want to, Board of Education, you have a right to, but kind of give an overview of that, and any questions that you guys as a board would like to ask, please fire away.
Okay, certainly. What we've done initially, knowing that we were going back to school, is amping up our supplies, our disinfectant and supplies, to go out to each of the classrooms. we have a lot of classrooms, so you can imagine how many spray bottles we have, how much disinfectant we need, how many microfiber cloths we have, hand sanitizers in every one of these classrooms. And so within that classroom, that's what we're trying to do, is establish a clean environment, and that's what the teacher during the day will take care of with their students, and that's taking care of their village, if you will, inside of each one of those classrooms. So we want to make sure that they have everything they need to take care of that. Outside of the classroom, custodial efforts will continue in the hallway on an ongoing basis. They'll be working the hallways, hitting high-touch surfaces, bathrooms, bottle fill stations, doorknobs, entryways, just anything you can think of that has a hard surface that we wipe. The walls, especially on corners where kids drag their hands when they're walking around corners and stuff like that. So we want to make sure to hit all those high-touch surfaces on a continuous basis. We put trash cans, one for every 2 classrooms, 40-gallon, 45-gallon trash cans. So during breakfast and lunch, each classroom will share 1 can. So the teacher will bring in, kids will put their trash in there, and then they'll put it back in the hallway. The next classroom will dump their stuff in that trash can, and the custodian just has to go down the hallway and empty it into a larger cart, keeping the kids out of the hallway with trays and all that kind of stuff to help minimize the custodian going in the room or the kids coming out of the room. So that's part of that. Our evening custodians will work thoroughly through the classrooms, cleaning the high-touch surfaces within the classroom as well as outside the classroom, and then continue with the blue tape seal. And I don't know if you guys seen that blue tape that we have on the doors with the date on it. That's our blue tape seal. Once they've sanitized the room, they'll shut it, they write the date, and they seal the door. That way, if a teacher comes in and the seal's broken, she knows somebody's been in there. And then may ask for somebody to come in and just wipe some surfaces down, or do it herself, or himself. So we'll continue with that. And then all of our custodians, we had a training about 3 weeks ago with all of our custodians. We went through the CDC guidelines of cleaning and sanitation for public institutions, which would include colleges or K through 12 schools. We went through that. Gave them some pep talk, got them motivated to want them to stay positive what they're doing, told them definitely they're going to be working harder than they've ever worked before, because this is an ongoing thing. This is an ongoing cleaning. You're not sitting down, there's no lull times or anything like that. There's going to be enough things going on within the school day that they'll have to take care of. The rest of the time they're spending wiping down surfaces and taking care of everything else at that point. And that's where we're at right now with that.
Have we checked all of our sanitizers and everything to make sure that none of them have been caught up in the recalls?
Yes, we have, and no, none of them have. In fact, our hand sanitizers that have been recalled are methanol based. These are all alcohol based.
Okay.
Whether it be ethyl alcohol or isopropyl alcohol, but they're alcohol based, not methanol though. Okay. And then our sanitizer, our disinfectant that we use is a quat cleaner. And it's QT3 is what we use. It has a 3-minute idle time or dwell time. So you spray it, dries in 3 minutes, it's disinfected. You necessarily don't have to wipe it down, but we will go through and wipe it, leave it wet. 3 minutes, it's got to kill time at that point. Okay.
Frank, I don't need the details of it, but do we have a safety plan for our custodians so that they are protected as well?
Oh yeah. They've went through this reentry plan. We went through that. What's required of them if they can't maintain the social distancing. They all are supplied with face masks and what have you, rubber gloves throughout there. If we do, and I don't want to get into that, but if we do have a positive case of what that cleaning looks like for them and their suit up and what's going to be asked of them within that 24-hour period. And our deal is we want to be ready to go for the next day if that's what happens. All right.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you.
So the next element of our 7, this is step 1, was the increased sanitation efforts, was the social distancing. And many folks have differing opinions of what that means. As a general rule, in the CDC guidelines that references in our plan that links to it as a resource is 6 feet. That if I'm like right now, I'm 6 feet away from Stephanie and Lori, that it's fine when we're speaking. We don't. That's really in the social distancing, and I'll touch on mask here next. But before then, on social distancing, what that looks like. So Ryan, would you please come share and give some information on that, please?
Yes. Like Larry said, in our plan, we are citing 2 primary sources for social distancing. It's not a definition that we came up with ourselves. we are looking to the CDC and then the guidelines that have been provided by DESE and the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services. CDC clearly outlines 6 feet when possible and when feasible. DESE and the Department of Health talk about 6 feet apart is best, and when that's not possible, we should try to make a minimum of a 3-foot distance. But also everyone is very aware that there will be areas in the schools where it's easier to maintain distance of 6 feet and where it's more difficult. So we look at social distancing as a very important foundation to our plan, but also needs to be used in combination with other factors such as face masks when necessary, our student cohort groups, keeping students in their assigned seats so that if they are exposed to one another, it's limited. You're not assigned or you're not exposed to the entire classroom. You're exposed to only a few at a time. They do talk about the amount of time. If you are within 6 feet or less for longer than 15 minutes, you will be considered a close contact in the contact tracing that our health department does, regardless of whether masks are or aren't used. And so we've been in touch, like Larry said, with the Cole County schools and the Cole County Health Department. They strongly recommend that we look at implementing social distancing wherever possible, but also that we are realistic, that it won't be achievable in every scenario, and that we lean on those other layers in every way possible. So those are our sources for social distancing.
So one question that I had presented to me was, so in a classroom, for example, in the secondary level, I know we've talked about, and the plan references that the students be asked to wear masks in passing in places where they can't maintain. So in the classroom where it's not possible for the class to be set up, and I don't know whether it is in some classes and most or all, but if a teacher has a classroom that it's not possible for them to get distance between the students, will they have the prerogative to ask the students to leave their mask on, to wear masks in those situations where their classroom can't be set up that way?
Yeah. Excuse me, and Gary will touch on here later on masks, but we will, if they cannot ensure social distancing, they will have a mask on.
Okay.
We're requiring our students to wear masks, and that is going to be
And
a,
that'll be the teacher will have the ability to make that call in their classroom then.
For
because
secondary.
every classroom size is different, and the enrollment and the number of students in there. We know there's some students that are opting out that are doing it virtually, and so it will have an impact on our class sizes, which we think it will reduce it. But yes, if they're in a situation, they will be asked to wear their mask.
Okay.
And Jason and Frank might be able to talk about it too. We did conduct an assessment this summer, measuring schools, looking at the capacity of classrooms, removing any furniture or other items that were limiting the space within classrooms to allow us the greatest space possible for spacing out desks. And we did not find any areas that we were concerned with or that we didn't think would have adequate space.
In a lot of classrooms, we took out tables, and Frank, do you know off the top of your head, how many desks did we buy? Close to 1,000? About 1,400 additional desks that we're gonna take tables out because it's harder to do. And then in places where we had to have table, we've bought plexiglass to sit in between the students. So
Okay.
I feel very good that we should be able to provide the ability to have social distancing in a class. And like Brian said, we have students that have taken virtual, so now we have fewer students in our buildings also.
Okay.
Sound good? Okay.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you, Ryan. The third step is our staff and student screening measures. So Jason, would you touch on that, please?
So when we surveyed parents, actually the top priority that made our parents feel the safest was if we would check temperatures every day. And early on that seemed very daunting, especially at our secondary schools, and even at our elementary schools. How do you check 400 temperatures at North Elementary even as they're all coming in, and thinking about the staffing of that. We looked at a lot of different ideas, and then Callaway County, actually their county, they got together, and it was an important thing for them as well. So the CARES money that the counties have received in Callaway County, they bought these thermal detection cameras for every school building in the county of Callaway. And so obviously our two schools were going to get them. And so looking at it, it was a great solution for our problem. So it's a camera. It looks like a normal video camera, but it is able to check up to 30 temperatures per second. And it recognizes a face and it puts a number on the forehead. And then if there's an elevated temperature, which we're able to set it at, and then if there's an elevated temperature, an alarm will go off and an alert will be sent to 3 different contacts. And so all of those are being installed. They will be installed before the first day of school. We actually have our first training starting tomorrow at Lewis and Clark. They're all scheduled. The last one is going to be done on the 21st at Capital City High School. But all of the installations, all the training, everything should be up and running for the start of school.
And if you could touch on the Callaway schools of Callaway Hills and North Elementary, our 16 schools in Cole County, we did go ahead and order, but we do hope to
Right.
get some.
And we'll talk about that more during the budget amendment, but there's a $210,000 line item that we've expended for buying these for the 16 school buildings in Cole County. We've had a lot of discussions with Cole County. I feel like we will get reimbursement, but at this time, they're still working through their process. So we did 1 at every elementary building, and we did 2 at all of our secondary buildings. And then in addition to that, we've bought, Chad has done a good job, and we bought a bunch of the handheld thermal detection. So the process is going to be, if there is an elevated temperature, that's not an automatic you're out. We're going to then get that student, get them to the nurse, and then do a second check with an individual scan.
Thank you, Jason. Okay, the next is the personal protective equipment. And I'm going to touch on the first part of the mask for our staff. And then Gary's going to talk about with our secondary students. And then Lori's going to talk about with our elementary students. So as a general rule, all staff will wear masks as a general rule. There are exceptions. Today I went to Capital City High School this morning and I had a mask. And I didn't go around and greet folks like I normally have in past years. But you can give them an elbow or an air fist and welcome them with a mask on. When the mic was handed to me, as in now I'm speaking, I took my mask off. And those are times where we can. We've shared here in central office that we started here the last 6 weeks. That if you're at your workstation, you don't have to have a mask on. If you leave your workstation, you need to put your mask on. If you come out here and get a coffee, you need to wear a mask. And it's been a learning curve for a lot of us, including me. And but I think that it's for the most part, I feel comfortable that is happening. In our buildings for our teachers, they will be asked to wear a mask. When they go to class, when they go to school, if they can be assured that they have social distancing of 6 feet around them. They do not, but that's the exception. So if I'm a teacher in the classroom and I'm getting ready to address my students, and if you were my class here today, I would be in front of the class. I could take my mask off so you could better understand me, or I could articulate better. If I'm going to then work with some students, I need to put my mask on. When I leave, when I'm at the door greeting kids at the door with the fist bump like we would like all of our to do, that's going to be different in that space, but they need to have a mask on as they welcome them to the class. When they walk down the halls, they need to have their mask on. So they need to have their mask on other than when they're eating or drinking, or if they are sitting at their desk and there's no one around within the 6 foot to ensure that. They can do that, and that's just to ensure the safety and recommendations from CDC and the Cole County Health Department of what that looks like. Folks have an opinion, whether it's political or not. It's not. It's safety. If you want to make it a political thing, folks can do that, but at the end of the day, we have a responsibility. We're taking recommendations for the safety of our students and our staff. So it's something that I think is really important as we evaluate that, because most folks have an opinion about that. So with students, Gary, would you come up and share with regards to our secondary students, what that looks like in our secondary buildings, and then Lori will follow with our elementary schools.
So I'll try not to repeat what's been said, but like as far as creating the extra space in the classrooms, there's many layers of protection in addition to the mask. And it's spreading the desk out, having the students face the same way and not each other. It's ironic that through the years, we've equipped our classrooms to have more student engagement and interaction with one another, and then COVID is here, and it's like all of our work to get instruction and furniture to accommodate that type of instruction is just kind of the opposite of what we got to do right now, but we'll do the best that we can. And so, at the secondary level, there'll be some overlap with elementary, but anytime you're on a bus, anytime you're entering a building, exit a building, passing periods, going to lunch, those where there's probably going to be, impossible to keep 6 feet 100% of the time. And so I think as important as anything, especially at the secondary level, is the enforcement thereof. And maybe some staff having more anxiety than others. And what I told the principals is what we have to make sure we capitalize on is student leadership. We've got to work with our students and say, guys, it's not about us against you. It's not about more school rules. It's about keeping everybody, including you, me, your families, and the entire community healthy. And so just to get that buy-in, to have the students understand that we need their help and we need their leadership when it comes to wearing masks and social distancing. So I think those are the key elements of that. There are some areas where it creates additional challenges that we're still fine-tuning, like band and large vocal music groups. What can we do to keep them as safe as possible? And so we'll be doing the best we can to keep everybody safe. And but again, at any level, but I can't emphasize enough the support and the partnership we need with our students.
So what about a student who, invariably somebody's not going to, they're going to forget it, they're going to, whether intentionally or, so what about the kid who shows up to get on the bus or shows up at school, doesn't have his mask? So what is our plan?
So we're going to have an extra supply of disposable masks where we don't, I leave my office area and I forget my mask sometimes.
Yeah.
We want to keep the students there, so we're going to have additional supply of masks.
Okay.
And I didn't know if that's what you meant, or we run into refusals to wear, or just there'll be some extras.
I guess the follow-up would be, so have we talked about across our buildings in terms of consistency on how a student who is refusing or not cooperative or not complying, I think what we would all like to see is make sure that, somebody at Lewis and Clark that situation is handled the same way it is at Thomas Jefferson, and vice versa.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more, Ken. And we've talked a lot about that because we don't want it to become something that people focus on. When they come to school, we want them to focus on learning and the relationships there. So we talked about a progression, about simple redirections, because we don't want to write a bunch of referrals and use ISS and OSS. We have a progression in mind where it starts at the teacher level about redirection, and then if we've got to get administrative involvement, and then next progression would be a phone call home to, let's always give our parents an opportunity to help us and grow our partnership and say, hey, we need your help here. Can you talk to your son or daughter this evening? And then hopefully that 99.9% that progression will be successful. And then, if you run into an extreme case where we get that, at some point in time, you've got to wear the mask or you can't attend school.
Okay.
Yeah, Brett.
Can we, there's going to be kids that do test the situation. Do we have that written down so that we can have that posted, that if a child does this, then the repercussion is that? I think we really want to strive for equality and fairness in this. We certainly don't want an issue where, well, he did this at this school, but his little brother did that at the other school, and it was completely different on the, the discipline side of it. It would seem like we wanted for the parents to know right off the bat that this is a safety issue, and, there will be some kids that probably want to get closer than 6 feet and maybe pull a mask off and do some things. Will that be the same repercussion at every school? And do we have that a piece of paper printed out that we can hand out?
We don't have it in writing to hand out. The as far as if it's just the mask situation, that's one thing. Obviously, it could be with any redirection of a student in our buildings. whether it's be the language or dress code or cell phones or whatever. So if it is just a mask situation and it doesn't, and that's where we want to keep it, not have it blow up to anything else where it could fall into a different behavioral event category. We have the progression written down that the entire secondary administrators group discussed about this is the progression of intervention. If we don't get accomplished, the student doesn't accommodate our request, then it goes to an administrator, then we get parent involvement, and then if we still don't get it, then they're just not going to be able to come to school if they're not going to wear their mask. So it's hard to say that discipline consequence could never happen because it depends on how the student handles that situation. We want to work hard to de-escalate any and everything or keep it, at a low level. So there's some variables to it, but generally speaking, the progression is simple redirection, administrator, parent, accommodate the request, and we're good.
And that's consistent with any
Yeah, it's pretty
policy,
consistent.
is that correct?
Yeah. There can be an extreme event where no redirection was given an opportunity and you've got to act accordingly, but that's generally what we want to do with any misbehavior, something that we've got to redirect.
Now, the situation medically where the student, a doctor writes a note, says, no mask due to, under other underlying health conditions. Have y'all got that all figured out too?
I'm sure Chad has talked to his building nurses, but that's where they just got to let the staff know, hey, if you have this student, you got to be aware of this, and this is how we're going to give them mask breaks, or they don't have to wear it in this situation. But
Okay. So happen.
okay.
Thank you, Gary. Lori, would you come talk about our elementary kids?
So going along with that, with the bus, with our little ones riding a bus, they have to wear a mask. And so if they would refuse, we really get into that education part of the why, because our little ones may not understand that. They may not have had to have worn one since closure happened and they've been home. And so we want to make sure that understanding of why, and that goes through secondary as well. So I just wanted to mention that to go along with Gary's. For K through 5, masks are not going to be required. But our main sanitize, spread, and have that clear. We can still kids being able to talk to one another, protect between with masks in the class. Teachers, in case they would do in the classroom, they know that, and so they so we have got for distancing and schedules will be very scheduled and managed by kids throughout the process. Be breakfast in the classroom. So ground, so crossing over exposure. Now, our PE in classroom, so we will not be sharing.
Break it all. The classroom they do room. I mean, from start to the end of
the 50-minute plan during art, music, and PE, out of the classroom, art, music, or PE coming. And almost everyone's plan, but almost make that happen for
Okay.
them.
Good.
Billings, we do believe we're always want to use that.
Sure. As you all know, me, I much believe in our volunteers. We spoke about this, and a lot of time. I also am at Lewis and talking this summer before we made our decision. So this was the decision. Well, that would be, so that could be our EL between building amount, sorts of people allowed to come into our purpose, providing services. Those are those outside contract with health or what, providing. Important that we get them in the building. Again, we would ask them. And then others who are delivering a specific service inside the building. So think in terms of machine outside, those sorts of people, and again, them to wear a in the building and parents. Not to have parents come is going to be very difficult. To kindergarten, so I can only imagine. And so our buildings are working on other ways to get those families information. It's great. Years are very difficult transitions for family, for many of our families. I appreciate the work that all the buildings are doing to do those online virtual. If you are a Boys and Girls Club mentor with your child outside district hours or outside of school hours, we're thinking about things like asking the buildings to use a Chromebook. Maybe we can set something up in the library so that student can still talk with you, but we're just going to limit those folks. We're not doing the ABLE program this year, heartbreaker for me, as well as the ABLE volunteers, but we felt like it was in the best interest of both the volunteers and the students that we don't do that. We're even doing things like the mail for the school district as well as UPS will be left in the vestibule, and we will ask our teachers to go, our staff to go out and get that mail and bring that in the building and sort it. It is a big change and it is very difficult, and we respect that, but we felt like these were the folks that were only those folks who were absolutely essential to delivering education we would put in the buildings. Any questions for me?
Yes.
Yes.
So for Big Brothers, Big Sisters, for our on school site mentors, they will have the capability of.
The buildings are
possibly a
working on
Zoom
that.
or-
They're working on that if they can't find another alternative. So some of them are already seeing students off-site, and they could see them off-site and would prefer to do that. But we're offering them the option of, we're trying to work that out where we could use the Chromebooks. In many of the buildings, we already have all the Chromebooks. Joe has all that technology there, so we can look for that. Now, obviously, the other side would have to have some sort of device. We can take care of our side of the device, but we're asking our buildings to try to be creative with that. But we're also encouraging the mentors to look for other ways that they can see students face to face, because clearly that's the best way to connect with someone. We all know that it's not good. I was a mentor for years, and I don't know that I could have formed a real relationship with her if it was only through a screen.
Right.
Even though there were days that she only wanted to look at her screen.
Thank you.
Any other questions for me? All right.
Really quick, have you had these conversations with Able and Big Brothers Big Sisters? So they know?
So Big Brothers Big Sisters is Ryan. I am Able. We had multiple conversations before we actually made the final decision. And quite frankly, I was a little surprised, to be honest with you, when I talked to Able. So they normally have about 60 volunteers. And so the first conversation I had, they said, we think we still have 45. And that was like May, June. And then we had a follow-up conversation and they were down to like 30. Which was not a shocker to me. And then when we finally made the decision, they were fully supportive and felt like it was in the best interest of both the students and their volunteers. Many of their volunteers are retired folks.
Right,
and we just, Larry and I had lots of conversations about the fact that if one of them became ill because of us, it was just not a situation we felt good about. And they were great about it. And I believe you had a similar conversation with the other three sisters. Again, we're looking for those strategies with them, but it feels like it's the right decision at this point.
Thanks, Brenda.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. So those were 5. There's 5 elements of our reentry plans. Number 6 is our virtual education options. So Dr. Scarborough, would you please share those?
Yes, as of today, we have 1,387 virtual requests. It's pretty evenly spread between elementary, middle school, and high school. All of our buildings are making personal contacts with all of the families that have requested virtual, mainly communicating the expectations that are involved, and so they have an understanding of the not only launch expectations, but expectations for our end, that we have 14 days after the start of the school year where a family could change their mind either way, to go virtual or to come back in seat. And some of that was working in collaboration with launch on coming up with those. For elementary students, after that 14-day window, they could change at quarter. Same with middle school students, they could also change at the quarter, and for high school students, because they're credit-bearing classes, they can change at semester. So we want to make sure that we're getting all of that information to families so they know that it's once you commit, you're committed for a period of time, and we want to make sure they know what those timelines are. One of the great things about partnering with Launch is that each school will have an observer account, and so they will be able to monitor and support students that are engaged in the launch program. So if they find that a student may not be engaging in their learning, they're able to reach out to those students and still be involved. So it's not like we're just sending our students through Launch. We will still be involved and monitor and support the progress that they're making. Also, for students who receive specialized services, we will still be involved in providing supports for them. So they will be able to be either teacher assistants in their launch classes. They can monitor the coursework and help them modify those assignments and tasks as they need. Or if there's other specialized services, finding ways that we can still provide those in our school buildings. So when we do virtual, we're offering that option, but we also, they will still be our students, and we will still be providing supports as we need to do so. Any questions about our virtual options?
When does the window to make that decision close?
So we are going to allow families after 14 days after the start of school. So by, I think, September 6th, which is a Sunday, is where that 14-day window is. So we had a deadline of August 3rd because we wanted to have as many people as possible make their decisions so we can start working through the best interest determination. And so we're working through those right now. So we hope by this Friday we'll have a pretty good idea on who's staying with Launch, and we can get them enrolled through Launch.
So families can still sign up today, okay?
It's still, the link is still on our
The
website.
14-day window, if, say I send my student to school and then I decide, so I have that, that also is within that 14 days.
So 1387 is students, not families?
Students, yes.
That's students, and do you know how it's spread? I'm just curious.
It's pretty
Between
even.
elementary and secondary, it's pretty even
It's
spread?
pretty even, and it's pretty even when we were looking at elementary schools, it's pretty even. It's not like one grade level or one school building that seems to be heavier than others. It's pretty evenly spread. But our buildings, all the regular pressure of trying to get a school year started, and then they're also really reaching out to make that individual contact with families to make sure people are truly informed and they can make the best decisions for their children.
So will those students still have at the elementary level, for example, will they still have a teacher, like a classroom teacher assigned that they would have gone to?
Yes.
Have they attended? So they'll know their teacher is Mrs. So-and-so or Mr. So-and-so?
No, they'll actually have a teacher through Launch. So they will engage
Okay.
for 6 hours of instruction with a teacher synchronously.
But through Launch,
through
they
Launch.
won't have a classroom teacher at the school they would attend assigned? Okay. All right.
I would assume the parents, even at the high school level, have to sign some type of understanding that their child will be attending. Do we have anything that I can't imagine a scenario that a parent wouldn't want their kid to learn, but if somebody didn't keep checking in online, that we would have some type of recourse or somebody would reach out to them?
And that's part of the observer count, so we can make sure that when we start seeing a student may not engage after a day or two, then we can help, figure out what supports they need so that they can continue to engage.
And they kind of had a trial this summer with launch, with summer school, and they were able to determine if a child had not, logged in for a week, and they were getting called. And that's just an example of, I think, working out some of those kinks, and for us, knowing that they are still our students, but virtually what we can do to help partner to work with them.
Should I'd like to see the list of which school, how many from each school?
Sure.
If you have that.
And we're working through a finalized list as we start making these phone calls to decide, because some parents are changing their minds after they hear about some of the expectations and seeing some of the things, the measures that we have in place in our schools. So it's giving them a vote of confidence to send their kids.
So I've heard that some parents thought that it would be like
The
fourth
spring.
quarter.
Yeah.
What really launches you're gonna sit in front of the screen for 6 straight hours and you're gonna learn. Very different kind of expectation. So they're Jeff City School District students. Is DESE paying us and then we contract with Launch, or are they now, does DESE give their money directly to Launch? Are they Launch students, or how does that, I'm just curious.
No,
There are students.
And so we collect ADA on them,
Okay.
but we, through the foundation formula, you get paid on your highest of your 3 highest years. So if you think your current year is gonna be the highest, you estimate that you're paid on that year. But if not, they pay you on the higher of your 2 previous years. And so nearly every district in the state is being told, don't expect this to be one of your 3 highest
Right,
years. Because
right.
We're encouraging people, don't come to school if you have any of these symptoms. So we know our attendance rates are gonna be lower, we're gonna have other issues. So we do collect ADA on them, but all of our state aid is gonna be based on last year's student count. So it's our expense and there's really no extra money at all for it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
So, and maybe you'll talk about this later, but, so we have all these kids that potentially are gonna quarantine because they've been in close contact with someone, or we tell them not to come to school because they don't feel well. So we're gonna have a lot of kids that are gonna miss a lot of days, just because we're gonna miss a lot of days as employees. Do we have how are we gonna overcompensate for that, or, what's kind of the plan?
So in our buildings, and elementary teachers went through Google training for Google Classroom. And so one of the things that we hope to do is to start those practices right at the beginning of the school year. So we provide that digital option. So should a student have to be quarantined and miss school, or should we have to close the classroom or close the school, we already have that platform set and we can work through that when we come back to school. So it would be very similar if a student was sick and they get their homework that they missed. We're hoping to as much as we can virtually, so that system is already set up. So that instruction will be provided by our schools and our classroom teachers, not through Launch. Only the ones that are going through full-time virtual will go through Launch.
Wow, so you gotta have classroom instruction.
Right.
You have to have the Google in case they have to be home, and then you gotta kind of observe on Launch. I mean,
Look how tired these
I mean,
people are.
seriously, it's unbelievable. It's
But people
incredible
are
what they
stepping
do.
up, and I'm telling you, they
Yeah.
are stepping up, so.
So the observers are our staff?
Yes.
employees. Okay, okay.
Yeah, our counselors, our administrators can monitor that for each building.
Okay, great.
Shelby or Larry, will a kid that's at home, will they be able to participate if they were a speech and debate or any service clubs? Will they still be able to participate?
Yes. If their parents want them to do so, then, and we do have, when we first communicated our plan, we used the word hybrid, but what hybrid meant is you may have a student that wants to do virtual with Launch, but they want to be a part of orchestra or part of band. And so then they would come to school and be a part of those activities if their parents wanted them to do so. So we're trying to be as flexible as possible to meet the needs of all of our kiddos.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Shelby. Chad, I asked Chad Suter to come and share. We recognize, or I think we would be naive if we said the entire school year that we would never have a positive case. And so our procedures for when that happens with regard to procedure-wise, contact tracing, Chad, would you, he's the expert guru on it, so Chad, would you touch on that, please?
Yeah, so basically tonight we have heard all the different layers and processes that we have in place to keep our kids in school and keep our staff safe, keep everything moving the best we can. But one thing that we have to account for is that not every kid that walks through our door is going to be a COVID-related illness. Okay, so even though they walk through that door and they get a temperature scan, that's not an FDA-approved temperature scan. And so my nurses have been trained that whenever a kid pops positive for a temperature, they're immediately sent to the nurse's office. We scan them with an approved FDA thermometer. And at that time, they will triage that student to determine the level of if they're really sick, did they just get off of a bus that's really hot, did they run to school, did they walk to school? There's other reasons that kids might have a temp that's not necessarily illness related. So I have developed triage questions coming from the hospital setting that my nurses will use to evaluate whenever they get a student sent in to the health room. So hopefully we don't have to send a bunch of kids home because of temp, but if we do, it's not always COVID related. And so that's something that we have to be mindful of, that we're coming into flu season, we're gonna have ear infections and pink eye and strep. We're gonna have all that other stuff we have to weed through, that it's not just COVID. So that's something that the nurses are gonna be armed with, especially working with the front end office staff. So if you hear tonight all the different layers that we have in place, I think we've got a really good system. You know, like Larry said when we first started, we're gonna stumble probably the first couple weeks. I expect that. You know, if we don't, we must be missing something. But I think that we've got a rock star of a team here on AC, and they put together a great plan. So I think we're got some really good things in store. And Lori, your question earlier, you asked about exceptions to masks.
Mm-hmm.
There are medical exceptions, and there is a memo that I've created. It's been vetted through AC, and it's based on CDC guidelines for kids and staff for certain medical conditions. This allows the principal and the nurse to work together to determine if, for instance, myself, if I have asthma or something, you know, am I able to wear a mask? If not, I have other things that I can do in place of that. So that's where the autonomy of the building comes into play. That, okay, so Chad can't wear a mask, but that means we need to put him by plexiglass, or we need to put him somewhere else. So yes, your question, there is a guideline for people that can't wear a mask. So hopefully that answers that question
Well, one
from
of
earlier.
the things that we're doing at our workplace, some are wearing the shields. I know it doesn't completely cover the nose and the mouth, but especially asthmatics, severe asthmatics are wearing the
Correct.
shields, and I didn't know if that was something that
That would be an
we might
option.
look at.
Is it the best option? Of course not, but we have to be, this is trademarked, fluid and flexible.
Right.
From Shelby. It is trademarked, so make sure you get permission before you use that. But fluid and flexible, we have to be able to, if the standard isn't working, we can't just allow it to be a free-for-all. We have to be able to, what can we modify to still allow that student to be successful, or a staff member, you know, because my nurses take care of staff members too. It's not just students we have to look after, because we have to all stick together in order to make this work.
Absolutely.
So there are alternatives, and even in that letter, there's alternatives that I put in there that we can do as an option, you know, if someone can't wear a mask. But both the building administrator and the nurses have that, and so that's something they can work on at a building level. And if they have issues, then they can reach out to me, and I can help them with clarification. So hopefully that helps answer that question from earlier.
does. And then we had some schools that shared a nurse, is that correct? Or do we have a nurse at every school now?
Every school has a nurse.
Okay.
I do have one nurse that floats between TJ and LC. So we have a nurse at LC, we have a nurse at TJ, and I have an extra one
Extra, okay.
that floats between the two to help out. So it's, those three work out their schedule on when meds are given and when things are. So I let them have the autonomy of what they need to do. But yes, there is a nurse at every building
Good deal.
right now. And we have 6 subs in the pipeline as well for backups, you know, if we need to. But another thing to talk about that Larry mentioned was contact tracing. So I've been helping with contact tracing with Cole County Health Department for our district. And so basically what that means is I'm not doing the investigation, I'm doing the tracing, because there's 2 different things. There's a contact tracing and there's a contact investigation. So what I do is I gather all the data for them because I'm inside the school district. It's easier for me to gather all the data, the employee name, the student name, the contacts. I get the plan from, like, who did you last have contact with, when did you have symptoms. I ask all of these questions, I put all that together. I give that to the health department, and that helps us with contact tracing and clearing a building or clearing a staff member super quick. Because if you think about it, how hard would it be for someone from the outside to try to call the right person to get all the information that they need? So basically, the administrators, they call me, I get in touch with that employee, ask them these questions that need to be asked, put together a plan, I put together my recommendation, I work with Cole County Health Department, we come up with a plan, and then I notify that person's supervisor in HR, along with that person saying, this is the plan that's going to be for you when they contact you. So hopefully that helps. And then another thing that was mentioned earlier, and this will be the last thing and let you guys have questions, we're keeping everybody in cohorts. If we mentioned that earlier, we're keeping them in families, and that's to help with contact tracing. So what that means is if I have classroom A, that something happened in that classroom, I know where those students were sitting and who they had contact with the entire day. And I don't have to go running around an entire school trying to figure that out. So it helps me being able to help clear a classroom faster than waiting for days. A few weeks ago, we had a case, we were able to clear the entire basketball team in 2 hours by me and working with Cole County Health Department. So I mean, this is a great partnership that we have. So I'm looking forward to this school year, not for COVID, but I'm looking forward to seeing how all of our plans we have in place will help with general illnesses, not just COVID related. So that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah. So in answer to the question that, that has been raised, so it's not, your response is not driven off of a positive test. It is a process goes into place if a positive test occurs, and then based on who that individual's had contact with and where they've been and what they've been doing, that would then dictate whether the classroom gets shut down, whether an activity gets shut down, whether a school, worst case scenario, a whole building gets shut down. All those things would be driven by the situation.
That is correct. So unfortunately, I can't give you a black and white answer saying this is what it is.
I mean, there's not a number that says if
Correct.
this happens, it's going to be based on your investigation and then in consultation
Right,
with
yeah,
them.
you hit it pretty much exactly right. So whatever the situation is, I put that plan together. We work closely with Cole County, we come up with a plan, and then we'll disseminate that to whoever we need to, whoever is affected by that, so.
All right.
So the bigger schools, the middle schools, the high schools, help me, so this scanner, is it like an airport scanner that you line up and you come through one at a time?
No, it's like looks like a little camera like that.
Okay.
And it'll scan up to 30 people at a time. So as you're walking through, you don't even have to stop, you just keep moving. And almost like if you're herding cattle through a grate, they just keep moving. So there's no stopping.
So my question then, so do you have like a couple hall monitors on either side waiting to snatch one when the red light goes off, or is it automated that somebody's, you walk out of a store with something and the bells go off? Is that what happens?
It does. It does. And we're going to have a monitor there at the door. Usually we have people that are greeting the students anyway. We'll have a monitor there at the door to capture students as they come into the building. If they pop positive, they'll direct them discreetly, not just call them out in front of everybody, but they'll say, hey, come over here so I can talk to you. Send them to the nurse for an evaluation. Then we'll either send them to class or send them to home.
And if they miss them, there's an alert that goes principal, secretary, nurse, that they can go and look at the video and it'll show who had the high temperature at that.
Oh, that class.
Yeah, so we can find them. Yeah.
So are we gonna have enough, are our administrative personnel, are they gonna be able to handle that amount of time to do that?
I'm gonna tell you the truth, we are doing our training this week, so we're gonna see how labor intensive it is. But if they're already there greeting the students, they should be able to monitor that system as well if they're greeting the students already. So hopefully
we
that
hope
helps
to,
a
and if
little
not,
bit.
we'll have to adjust accordingly.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
it's education of parents too. They don't send your student to school if they have a temperature.
Right.
So
Don't give them
hopefully this
ibuprofen and send them on
will
to school.
help keep that from happening.
Yeah, hopefully those situations will be rare. I mean,
Of course.
right?
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, we shouldn't have 10% of the people walking through the door having temperatures, right?
Right. Yeah. So hopefully that helps. I didn't mean to go a roundabout way, but we do our training this week, so we'll see how that works out. As far as that. Yes. Anything else I can answer? I wanted to try to keep it high level because I can get way down in the weeds with all of this and keep you
Yes,
guys
you
here
can.
super late. Not gonna lie.
No, we trust you to be in the weeds.
All right.
We're glad you're aboard.
All right. I'm glad to be here. So thank you very much.
Chad, thank you.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. So those are the 7 elements to ensure a safe learning environment for our students and for our staff. So I appreciate our folks on our team and all the time that they've spent in this. So we recognize that there's going to be questions. Some folks have just, all they care about is masks, all they care about is social distancing. We will have the Q&A on Friday for our staff from 11 to noon on Friday, and then noon to 1 for our parents. They're sending out an email that they can submit questions, and then we'll go through that. The Cole County Health Department agreed to be a part of that with us, and so as we sit arm in arm with them as we work through these. So kudos to our team and for everything they've done on this. So any other questions? I just wanted to, I wasn't asking for any approval. I was just asking, I just want to give you an update on a back to school plan as we continue to educate folks on this and work together moving forward. Is there any questions for me on this?
Thank you for all your hard work.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like we're ahead of a lot of other districts when we hear the news as far as what has been announced, what has been, how people have been informed. I feel like we're ahead of the curve on.
And it could change tomorrow. We'll have to adjust and be fluid and flexible, right, Shelby, as we go forward. So that's all I've got.
Okay, all right, thank you. We'll move on to the approval of the sale of Simonson. Mr. Hoffman?
It's been quite a while since the tornado, but going through the process, we had several people interested in the building, and Frank did a great job working with people that contacted us and had interest. And I was surprised when we did the bid opening that we only had one proposal, but it was in your board packet, and hopefully you had a chance to look at it. If we only got one proposal, this one is super exciting in my opinion. And so a local couple, both J grads, are interested in taking Simonson and keeping it a part of our community and making it great, filling another need of 1 and 2 bedroom housing in the community. And so they had a bid of $101,914 for Simonson and then the parking lot across the street. So those are 2 parcels. And then there was an alternate bid to add Major Field. And if you remember, we've had discussions that there was a right of first refusal that the city has on that. And so their bid was for only $1 for Major Field, but their plan was to give it back to the city. So my recommendation is that we accept their main proposal for $101,914, reject the alternate bid, and then we can move on from there on how to handle Major Field.
It's very exciting to move to improve.
Second, yeah.
All right.
I do have one question. The only thing I didn't see in the proposal, does it say, or do you know what the price range that the apartments are going to be in? I mean, I was just curious whether we're talking about, extremely high end, or we're talking about medium prices, or.
Yeah, I don't know. From the pictures that they have in here, it certainly doesn't look low end, but with 1 and 2 bedroom, I don't know how high you can go. So I don't know really what their plan is for.
Okay. I was just curious whether we had an idea of that.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table.
And a second. Ken,
And a
what's the
second. Okay.
Yeah.
Any more comments? Discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Ding ding. And Mr. Hoffman, you're back up for the 2020-2021 budget amendment.
Work from here? It does. Okay, so The original budget that we passed in June, here are all the numbers for transparency, but the big number that we need to look at is we originally intended to have almost a $2 million deficit. And if you remember the way the funky things with the levy setting, we had to take some of our operating levy the year before Capital City High School was open, so we built a big surplus in that year, and then we had to spend that down. And so knowing that we went into the year knowing we were going to have a big deficit, $1.8 million, but we have a goal to have around 20% fund balances, and we still have this, that would still leave us with 23.8%. So we did receive other CARES money, so passage of the original CARES money. We received money in June, and so there's some additional monies that's coming in this fiscal year, so revenue change. We're going to get $234,000 that's coming to the district. We're also going to get another $434,000 that's allocated for the non-public schools. And so the way it works is the money comes to us, we spend it. We actually, if they buy something, we have to inventory tag it, even if it's at their school, it's our property. There's some really weird rules, but there's $434,000 that's going to be flowing through us, and we're going to be buying things that help our non-public partners open school safely. So we are getting some additional revenue, but you heard all the wonderful things that we're doing to keep everyone safe, but that comes with a pretty huge price tag. The first thing is just our final payment for the lease purchase of our devices to go 1-to-1, 6 through 8, and 2-to-1 K through 5. That wasn't in the budget, so we needed to get that added. The rest of this is all COVID related. So there's the $434,000 expenditure matching that revenue source above, spending the CARES money that's earmarked for non-public schools. Hearing the nearly 1,400 students that have signed up for launch, that has a price tag of about $3 million. And as I told you earlier, there's really not any additional revenue to offset that. But what that does, we have 15% of our students that are not in our building. So like I said earlier, that helps with social distancing in our building. But there's not really an offset for revenue. The thermal detection cameras, this is for the 16 cameras, or the cameras in Cole County. The 2 in Callaway have already been purchased by Callaway County. Just all the supplies that we have purchased, and this, keep in mind, these are only supplies that we've purchased from July 1st. So this is hand sanitizer and masks and wipes and all of the furniture that we've purchased. And so this is what we've purchased so far. And then also we've had MiFi devices for students that don't have internet connectivity at home. And so just planning that we're going to need to continue that throughout the year. So increasing our expenses by $4.6 million. So I'm sure you've heard at the federal level, they're part of the HEALS Act, which the Senate has proposed, and the HEROES Act that the House has proposed. Both of those have a significant amount of money for schools for these types of things. But unfortunately, the Senate went on recess on Friday, and I'm still hopeful that will come. We're working with the county to get reimbursement. The Cole County received $9 million of CARES Act money. They've said, schools, you're in the first phase. Their deadline today was for us to reach out, and they wanted a contact person, the number of students we have, the number of buildings. They wanted all the things we've already purchased. They want to know what else we may be purchasing, so we submitted that on Friday. So I'm confident the county is going to come forward and help us, and they've said we are in phase 1 of their funding, and they've said go buy what you need and we'll do our best to reimburse you. There are Fema funds that are available. So right now, these are expenses that don't have a revenue offset, but I feel very confident there will be some revenue offset. I don't know that we'll get $4 million, but at this point, we felt like we needed to do what we needed to do to have school. And so the fortunate thing is we did have fund balances that were higher than our goal. So now this would leave us with $5.3 million deficit for the year. And these are one-time expenses, hopefully. hopefully we're not dealing with this every year, so don't have to think about those again next year. But so that takes us all the way down to our 20% fund balance, but as we get revenue to offset some of that should help that bottom line tremendously. So we wouldn't normally do a budget amendment this early. Usually we do our first budget amendment in October, where when we've set the tax rate, got our assessed valuation, run our first payroll, we have a lot more information in October. So we'll come back and do that, but this was just an unusual year and thought it was important to get this budget amendment done early.
A lot of these consumable supplies that you're saying, are one time, but I mean, when we purchased, what do we have in inventory as far as carrying us for how long? I mean, do we know?
Not exactly. I know Frank has done a really amazing job, and I know he's purchased enough hand sanitizer to have a 1 gallon in every single classroom in the district. The furniture, we shouldn't have to buy more. We're going to need more hand sanitizer.
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. I mean, did we buy enough to project that we think we've got enough to get us through the end of the calendar year, or
I don't know that we have any real data to know how
fast we're going to go through that stuff.
Right. So we'll just have to monitor and be fluid and flexible.
Okay.
So COVID cost $4.6 million.
So far, and that's just from July 1st. That doesn't
Right.
account all the things we
Everything,
paid for last fiscal
Right,
year.
right. Wow.
And the launch, the tuition is a guess, because a lot of students have signed up just for the first semester, so they could extend. A lot of students have signed up and may not like it and leave after the first quarter. So that $3 million is based on our current student enrollment on what they've selected so far.
So that's for the 1,387 students.
Right. So some of those 1,387 have signed up just for the first semester so far.
We could have that whole thing next semester.
We could have.
So our friends at the county commission need to help us out.
And I'm confident that they will, as this is just, they're not used to having $9 million of federal money, so they want to make sure that they're following all the federal rules. There's always strings attached, and they've hired an accounting firm to help them through this process and make sure everything's going. So I think in the next week we should be here.
I was gonna ask when we might know if that's good. Okay,
Move to approve.
second.
Okay, any discussion? Any more? All right, all those in favor?
Thank
you.
All those opposed?
Thank you, Jason.
Okay, we will move on to future dates. First day of school will be Monday, August 24th. We will have a tax rate hearing on Wednesday, August 26th at 6 p.m. Coffee with Larry on Friday, September 4th at 7 a.m. And our regular board meeting for September will be Monday, September 21st at 6. And I'm going to turn it over to Lorelei.
Motion to suspend open to enter into the closed meeting by roll call vote pursuant to Chapter 610.021 of the revised statutes of Missouri, Sections 1, legal actions, 2, leasing, purchase, and sale of real estate, 3, hiring, firing, disciplining, or promoting an employee, 13, individually identifiable personnel records, and 14, records which are protected from disclosure by law.
Second.